Alright, hey there everybody and welcome to this video. In this video I'm going to be running a ONNX model on Infernet, and the specific code for this example that I'm going to be using is going to be under this repository, which is our examples repository, and it's called infernet-container-starter, and the specific project is called ONNX Iris. So what I'm going to be doing is bringing up an Infernet node. I'm going to also have a container that runs an ONNX model that also comes up with the Infernet node. It's basically managed by the Infernet node. And then I'm going to be deploying a whole bunch of contracts that effectively make a subscription to that container. And I'm going to be calling the container once from onchain and once offchain. So let's go ahead and do it. So at the top level directory, we can just build the container and deploy it simply by just doing make build container deploy container, and then you pass in the project name. Project equals ONNX Iris. So that's pretty straightforward. We run it, and boom, we can see that the Infernet node came up. It basically pulled the images and it ran it, right? So we can now actually take a look at the number of images that are running. So docker ps. Let's actually make this a little bit smaller so that it's easier to see. Okay, beautiful. So we can see 5 different images that are running, right? So the Infernet node is the Infernet node, obviously, and this is our image that we brought up. We also bring up an Anvil node so that we can test this from, like locally, but basically emulate a on-chain job. So let's take a look at the Anvil logs right now. So docker logs Anvil, and this basically shows you a typical Anvil node, what you would expect when you're running one. And over here, we can basically deploy all the contracts that make use of this. So make deploy, project Iris make deploy contracts. By running this, we deploy all the contracts. We can see that this transaction was sent. This is the contract. And now let's actually make a request to it. So make call contract, project ONNX Iris. There we go. So this effectively sends a transaction to the contract. The transaction gets picked up by the Infernet node, and the Infernet node basically delivers the result of that compute to the contract, and we can see that over here. And if you take a look at the contract itself, this is where that happens. So first we call request compute, which creates a subscription. After the result comes back, this function gets called, and all of our console.logs that we see here, all the logs basically are the logs that we put here, right? Awesome. So the details of this model, this is basically running the Iris classification model. The code for it is actually over here, simple ML models, Iris classification. So deep dive here if you want to actually understand how the specific model that I'm running works, but that's besides the point. This is more to just show that you can run an ONNX model. And there's also this tutorial that explains that further in detail. Another way that we can actually run this compute is via a Web2 request. And Web2, it's pretty easy. We can just run it but via a curl. We can basically do a post request to /API/jobs to the Infernet node. And Infernet node is basically when I listed the Docker images, Infernet node runs on port 4000. So you basically give it the container ID and some data that gets passed into that container, and you get a job ID back, right? Now I want to take a look at the status of this job. So we can do curl get, and then we can replace this job ID with the job ID that we just got. Boom, we get the results. ID matches the ID that we have. It gives you the container that this result is coming from. Makes sense. And we get the output, which is very similar to the Web3 output that we got over here, which is basically 3 different numbers. Each one of them is basically a probability weight for effectively which category does this flower belong to. Again, that's specific to that model, but in that model we're basically classifying iris flowers. So you can take a look at it to understand it more. But that is how you run an Infernet node. and also send it a Web 2 request as well as a Web 3 request. Thank you so much for watching, and see you guys in the next video.